Batteries. Rechargeable batteries do require some care in handling and charging. Many batteries can supply very high currents, and there are several different types of battery, all with their own recharging requirements. It is essential to follow the manufacturer's instructions, and if a charger is supplied, only use that charger for the battery. Do not assume the charger is suitable for other battery types that are not stated in the instructions. This can be critical in the case of lithium batteries. There is more than one type of battery chemistry, and the supplied charger is designed for that type and the correct amount of charge. Improperly treated lithium batteries, when charging or in use, can cause fire and explosion. You should only obtain lithium batteries and products from a reputable source. Accidents and emergency. In the likely event of an accident in the shack, there's always the possibility that the casualty may have suffered an electric shock and may still be in contact with the live mains. If another person touches the casualty, then they could also receive a shock and become a casualty themselves. The first action must always be to cut off the power using the master switch. Do not touch a casualty until it is known that the power is off. Adult help should always be summoned, and anybody who has suffered a shock should receive medical attention. Antennas and feeders. Antennas should be mounted clear of being walked into and out of reach of being touched. Feeders should be similarly secured. Coaxial feeders are screened, but it is still wise not to touch. Twin feeders, even if insulated, are not screened and can give a nasty RF burn. They should not be touched unless you know the transmitter is off and preferably disconnected. The wind loading of an antenna can be quite high during a gale. This may bring the antenna down, causing immediate injury or setting a hazard to be walked into later. It may blow or fall against overhead power lines, resulting in all the exposed metalwork of the shack becoming live from inside the shack. This risk may not be noticed. If particularly high antennas are proposed, then the risk of lightning strikes must be considered, as special protection may be required. Mast manufacturers will be able to offer advice, and so might the building control department of the local authority. There may be a need to obtain planning permission to erect large masts, and advice should be sought before starting work. Antenna erection itself is hazardous. Working at any height carries the risk of a fall, and such activities must always be supervised by a second person who is able to summon help if required. Since many risky activities are not always obvious, an adult must be present whenever anybody is up a ladder or similar activity. The ladder should be at least 4-to-1 angle. The bottom of the ladder should 1 unit of length out from the wall from every 4 units of height, as shown in figure 11.4. It should also be secured either by a person at the bottom or tying at the top, rather than carrying tools or putting them in a pocket. The person at the ladder should wear a tool belt to securely hold the tools and prevent them adding to injury in the event of a fall. When on the ladder, don't overreach sideways and keep both feet on the rung of the ladder. If your job is out of reach, come down and move the ladder. Those on the ground will need hard hats to protect them from dropped tools. It is also advisable for the person on the ladder to wear a hard hat to avoid surprise or injury from banging their head or on guttering brackets or the antennas. Figure 4, make sure you use the ladder at the correct angle. Never reach. RF burns and exposure risk. RF burns are electric shocks from feeders and antenna elements carrying RF power. The burn may not be particularly painful, but it can be quite deep. The full extent of the injury may not be realized until some time later. Antennas must not be touched during transmission, and insulated but unscreened antennas and wires can cause almost as much damage as touching a bare wire. Powers available to the foundation license are less likely to be an issue, but Bear in mind that an antenna erected while someone is a foundation licensee is likely to be used later when he or she has progressed onto a higher power license. The field strength close to an antenna, particularly in the beam of a high gain Yagi, can be high enough to cause heating of body tissue. The eyes are particularly susceptible since there is no blood flow to disperse the heat and the eye is more sensitive anyway. This is a greater risk at higher powers and may be the case at other stations or at field days where amateurs set up stations, perhaps for a contest in a field or campsite. The antennas must be mounted where people will not come into contact with them or be in areas of high field strength. Looking down waveguides is a considerable risk to the eyes since the RF energy is concentrated in the guide and energy absorbing in the tissue is more efficient at these very short centimetric wavelengths. Wavelengths are used as microwaves, frequencies such as 10 gigahertz, where coaxial feeders are unsuitable. The signal travels as an RF wave, but only within confines of the waveguide. Guidance on safe levels of RF radiation available from government and international bodies. Public Health England provides guidance for the whole of the United Kingdom, recommend the same advice as the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, ICNIRP. Handheld devices below about 5 watts do not represent a hazard, but it is common sense to keep the antenna away from the eyes to avoid being stabbed as much as RF heating. Car batteries. The main risk from car batteries is very high current available. However, charging the battery causes it to give off hydrogen, which in a confined space can form a very explosive mixture with air. They should not be charged indoors, and safer sealed batteries should be seriously considered. If tipped over, car batteries may leak. Their fluid contains a highly corrosive acid. Any spills need attention. A large spill will need to be assessed by an expert and may need to be neutralized before being safely mopped up. Splashes on the skin require immersion in running water for several minutes. First aid books recommend 15 minutes. Splashes in the eyes, immediate and constant irrigation, then medical attention. Headphones. Oh, here's a picture of a typical car battery in 11.5. Wearing headphones carries two risks. Hearing, first and foremost, is very easy to cause hearing damage. Particularly loud noises can cause damage and pain quite quickly. For example, changing channels after listening to a very quiet station may cause momentary pain or discomfort, which, if repeated too often, will lead to damage or hearing loss in the future. More subtle but of more concern is simply listening to a sound which is too loud. It may take a year or more for this to add up to a loss of hearing, by which time the effect will be irreversible. The advice is to keep turning the volume down until it's too quiet and then turn it up a little. Many take the opposite approach of turning it up until it feels almost too loud. That is really the wrong thing to do, although it may take deliberate effort to avoid practice. Number 2, electrical. The other risk when servicing equipment is that the headphones may complete the electrical circuit and enhance the effects of an electric shock. Do not wear headphones unless you are seated and operating with your equipment normally. Tools and repairs. One of the key parts of amateur radio hobby is the ability to make your own equipment. You can do that at foundation level, but there are some restrictions on using a homemade transmitter. There is, however, nothing to stop you making and using a receiver or other items. If you purchase equipment, then you should follow the manufacturer's instructions regarding any repairs. Attempting them yourself risks invalidating any warranty, causing further damage, transmitting out of band, which is a breach of your license, and possibly risking safety due to short circuits and overheating. Tools. You will need some tools which do present a risk of injury. Even hand tools have sharp edges or points, so a slip can cause a nasty injury. The item you're working on should be fixed down, and you should work so the tool is facing away from your body. Power tools present a greater risk or more serious injury. Follow instructions and handle all tools with care when drilling or cutting bits. From the work can fly up, so eye protection is required. Metal particles, swarf, will be sharp and might penetrate the skin or eyes. Care sweeping it up is also needed. Don't do it with your hands. Use a small brush and pan. Power tool instructions may recommend other safety items as well. Soldering and repairs. Soldering irons present a burn risk both to you and anything else it touches. A soldering iron stand is essential. A suitable stand is shown in figure 11.6. The rosin flux in solder presents two risks. It can split and splutter, so eye protection is needed, and it also creates fumes which can cause breathing problems, especially to those prone to such problems. Asthmatics, for example, you should have a well-ventilated workstation, and if you can arrange the airflow so the fumes are directed away from you. You may choose to repair a simple item of equipment. It must be disconnected from the power source and any manufacturer's instructions followed to the letter. This is because such equipment is carefully designed to be safe in use, not present a safety risk and not cause interference. You would not want to cause a safety hazard or compromise its correct operation. At foundation level, it is best to have repairs to commercially supplied equipment repaired or serviced by the dealer. Often items such as transceivers need setting up after repair, and that means specialist test equipment. Figure 11.6 shows when you are not using a soldering iron, keep it on stand. Tidy shack and workshop. A tidy shack minimizes the chance of accidents to your own equipment. Cables should be routed where they won't be an obstruction to a trip hazard. Wires trailing across the floor or liable to trip people over or drag equipment onto the floor and expose live parts. Hanging wires are liable to snag on people and other items. Wires running under carpets will become frayed over time and the damage not noticed until there is a fire or electric shock. Coaxial cables are carefully dimensioned, so bends, kinks, dents can cause problems. It is also sensible to route them away from wiring to minimize the likelihood of EMC problems. Field days and other premises, setting up a station, perhaps with friends or other club members, can be most enjoyable and a way to show amateur radio to others. It does introduce new hazards. The station will be temporarily as well with all power wires and feeders. Fixing the antenna will be a temporary arrangement too. All must be securely fixed out of the way where the unexpecting public can't either hurt themselves or cause problems, which may hurt others. Proper fusing RCBOs are essential. There must be exposed live equipment or repairs and adjustments in public areas. Better to have a working spare available. Working outside has new dangers. Overhead power lines must be kept well clear of high voltage pylon lines may well mean that the operation at that location is not possible. Shelter from rain is required from all electrical items. Having an RCBO inside at the power source is absolutely essential. Damp ground will increase the effects of electric shock, and the temporary nature of the station will increase the chances of something untoward happening. If you have any doubts, seek advice. In all these situations, you or whoever is leading the event must conduct a risk assessment. That means identifying all the reasonably foreseeable risks, assessing how likely they are to occur and what level of damage or injury is likely to result. It should also be set out what actions should be taken to minimize both the likelihood and severity of the outcome and what needs to be done if that accident did happen. In public events and premises such as assessment is likely to be condition of hire and insurance cover. It may be stating the obvious, but an accident, especially in public, is very bad press for amateur radio, as well as distressing for those involved. Of course, the same safety first attitude should be present in your own shack when entertaining visitors. Finally, remember that safety is everybody's responsibility. If you see an unsafe situation, warn others nearby and report the matter to an appropriate person. This applies everywhere at the radio club, public events, at home, and your shack. Operating field day can be challenging. Putting up field day antennas. License schedule. The schedule is a table showing the frequency bands and powers you are licensed to use at the foundation level. You must use table A. Have a look and study the table. Column 1 shows the frequency bands for foundation license. Column 2 shows the status of the allocation to amateur service. There are two types of status internationally: primary and secondary. Primary status, possibly shared with others, gives more freedom and operation. Secondary status obliges us not to interfere with users in the band who have primary status. Column 3 shows the status of the allocation to amateur satellite services. Column 4 gives the maximum power fed to antenna, or the ERP, effective radiated power. This is measured at the point where the feeder connects to the antenna. If there is considerable loss in the feeder, e.g. if it is particularly long, then some increase in power at the transmitter is permitted to compensate. This assumes that the transmitter's RF power can be measured. Note: measurement of power requires a suitable RF power meter. If necessary, the RF power can be assumed to be 2 or 3 of the 2/3 of the DC power to the RF power amplifier stage of the transmitter. Examples: the 50 MHz band extends from 50.0 to 52.0 MHz. The lower part, up to 51 MHz, has primary status but must not cause interference to other users outside the UK. The upper part has secondary status and must not cause interference to users inside or outside the UK. The power is limited to 10 watts. 2. The 70 centimeter band, 430 to 440 MHz, is divided into 5 sections because each part has different requirements. 430 to 431 MHz is limited to 10 watts ERP, so you must allow for the gain of the antenna. 431 to 432 MHz has the same power restriction but is also not available to amateurs within 100 kilometers of Charing Cross, London, and the point from which that is measured is specific. The rest of the band, from 432 to 444 MHz, does not have ERP restrictions, so you can feed 10 watts to a large Yagi if you wish. Also, 435 to 438 MHz is available for use with amateur satellites and the International Space Station if they have suitable equipment. The entire band allocation is allocated on a secondary basis, so the primary user can claim priority and ask you to move or stop using that band or part of it for a period of time. 13. The practical assessment. Now, this has been, for now, it's been put on hold during the COVID, but I'll read it anyway. During your training course, you may carry out a number of practical assessments. These are intended to help with learning parts of the training material and allow you to get on air under controlled conditions when you are not expected to be an expert operator. You will have an opportunity to make a contact using FM mode on a channelized band, making tuning easy, and there is a calling channel for a CQ call. Having made initial contact with someone, now they have made videos of all of this, you will find a clear frequency, asking if it is clear. You will then tell your contact, who is still on the calling channel, which channel is clear for a chat. Once there, it is up to you. Don't forget to identify yourself on each frequency you transmit on. Of course, your tutor will guide you through that process, and once you can do it unaided, that task will be signed off. Going on the air is part of practical assessment. And HF SSB contact is slightly trickier since there is no calling channel, so you need to find a quiet spot, check it is clear, and call CQ. It may take a few calls before somebody finds you and replies. You can stay on that frequency. The person who replied has the task of tuning it into you, but even so, his or her voice may seem a bit odd. If so, use the receiver increment tuning control to get a natural sounding voice. Don't adjust your main tuning or your transmit frequency will change, causing difficulty for your contact. Both contacts, indeed every contact you make during the training and assessment, should be logged. You will need a bit of scrap paper to jot down your contact's call sign and perhaps have a card showing the call sign of the station you are using. It seems a lot to remember, but at first it gets a lot easier with a bit of practice. Then you have the choice. You can either experiment with Morse code and learn a little bit about it, sending and receiving a short message locally by sound rather than radio, or you can make a data contact on air using a keyboard. You will be shown how to set that up. Exactly how that is managed depends on what the training club has available to you. You will have learnt that a dipole antenna only presents the correct match to the feeder if it is half a wavelength long. You will have a low power transmitter, an SWR meter to check the matching, and an adjustable dipole. The exercise which you may do in a small group is to find correct length for the best match. That is the lowest SWR. You should be able to plot a graph of the SWR against length like the one in figure 6.10 in chapter 6, feeders and antennas. Having done that and recognized that antennas are large on the HF bands, you will have an opportunity to adjust an antenna matching unit on 2 bands using a single antenna. Clearly it won't match on one of them. Indeed, it might not be that good on either band. That is real life. You can only put up as much antenna as will fit your garden. Both these exercises will be of help when you get home with your license and have to set up your own antenna. Of course, you can always ask your tutor or other club members to help and perhaps borrow an SWR meter. No doubt you will get one sometime, but not all at first. Again, as part of the preparation to set up your own station, you will connect up all the equipment needed to get on air. Maybe it will be the station you use for your on-air activities during the course. Good luck. The exam. The tutor may arrange the exam, or you can apply on the RSGB website. You must book the exam at least 10 working days before the end of the before the date of the exam. On the day of the exam, you must bring suitable evidence of identity with you, a passport, a driving license, something showing your address. You will also need your candidate practical assessment card, which at the moment is not needed. If you are under 16 and do not have all the requirement documents, your parent or guardian may identify themselves and you, but do bring what you can. The exam is not difficult, and it is certainly not out to trick you. The number of questions on each topic is shown in table 14.1, and a more detailed description is given in the syllabus. There are 26 questions aimed at items which you will have covered during your course. The pass exam you need to get is at least 19. Here's a breakdown of the exam, of the types of questions. So 6 for amateur radio license and call signs. Technical aspects 3. Transmitter and receivers 3. Feeders and antennas 3. Propagation 2. EMC 3, operating 3, and safety 3. Questions are multiple choice. There is a question and 4 possible answers, 3 of which are wrong and 1 is correct. How to tackle the exam? Online. Having enrolled, you will get an email with your username, a password, and a link to download the exam app to your computer. The first time you log, you will be asked. The first time you log, you will ask you to change your password. Right, I got it. To something more memorable. You will also be asked to work through the tutorial. You can log onto the system and your dashboard and work through the tutorial as many times as you like. Make sure you do this. You don't need to be working out how to drive the thing during the exam. It's not difficult, but you want to be able to concentrate on the questions. You probably will be asked to bring your laptop, but the club or exam centre may have a few available. Check the availability of a suitable computer during the course or when enrolling for the exam. Also, check during the course that you can log on at the exam venue. That means try it. At the exam room, having logged on to the system with your username and password, you will see your dashboard and the exam you are about to take. When the time arrives to start the exam, an enter button will appear on the screen. Press the enter button and type in the PIN code for the exam, which the invigilator will announce. Press start and you will then be able to start the exam. There is a half an hour window to start, and whenever you do, you will get a full hour allowed. There is a countdown clock in the top right hand corner. Answering questions is simply a matter of clicking one of the 4 answers options. You can change your mind and go back later and change your mind then. When you have answered all the questions to your satisfaction, you click on Submit. You will be warned if there are unanswered or flagged questions, so you can go back and answer or check them. When happy, click Submit again to see an Are You Sure button. Clicking on that will submit your answers and end the exam. If the time is up before you confirm submission, then it will be submitted anyway at that time. The exam is marked immediately and feedback sheet will appear on the screen with your mark. And result pass-fail. Closing the feedback sheet takes you back to your dashboard where you can view the feedback sheet at any time you wish. Download a copy and computer you are viewing it on. On paper, the questions are the same. You will have a question paper, an optical mark sheet, OMS, which has numbered set of 4 boxes, A, B, C, D. A sample is on the RSGB website under training exam forms. The 4 answers in the question paper are labelled A to D. For each question, tick the appropriate box on the optical mark sheet in pencil. You may also want to tick the chosen answer on the question paper, but the question paper is not marked or even looked at afterwards. You can circle the question number of a question you want to return as a reminder. Be careful when completing your optical mark sheet. In pencil, you can change your mind simply by using your eraser, so don't press too hard with the pencil. Finally, when you're happy with all your answers, shade in the chosen box in black ink. Make sure you are filling in the correct letter box for the question of that number. Once inked, it cannot be changed. The only marks on the OMS should be your signature at the top in the box provided and the shading of the answers. No other marks. You can make notes on questions paper and use the back of the previous page calculations. Questions papers and optical mark sheets are all collected at the end of the exam. General, read each question carefully and make a note of important words like not. Read all 4 answers options, even if you believe you have spotted the correct one. To be sure, you should see 1 answer you know is right and 3 you are happy are wrong. A question reading a good receiver is telling you that whatever else may be the case, the receiver is working properly and is not the source of any problem. The other important point is to answer exactly the question asked. Do not make assumptions or introduce facts that are not explicitly stated in the question. Make sure you have read the question properly and understand what is being asked. If you want to change your mind, then of course you can, as long as you have not submitted your answers. However, be sure why your first answer is wrong and your new one is right. Example 1. Your friend asks if he can use the radio. Should you say in reply, A, not here, but you can if you are not at my house. Yet B, yes, but only if I supervise you using it. C, sorry, no, the license does not allow it. D, only if you use it from your own home. The correct answer is C, sorry, no, the license does not allow it. However, if you assume the friend is also licensed, then all the answers are wrong. The question didn't say your friend was licensed, so you must not assume. That changes the question and unsurprisingly changes the answer. You may also meet a question where the question is the first part of a sentence and the 4 answers each complete the sentence to form a statement. Only one of the 4 statements is correct. The others are wrong. Example 2. The band of radio frequencies which allows worldwide propagation is A. HF band, B. VHF band, C. UHF band, D. Both the VHF and UHF bands. The correct answer is A. The ionosphere section in Chapter 7. You will have printed reference data booklets EX307, which contains the schedule to the license, a band plan of the relevant bands 2 meter and 20 meters, a frequency to wavelength conversion chart, and a frequency allocation table showing other users of part of the radio frequency. Don't forget to use it. Those questions are 3 marks. All you need to do is look up the answer. The reference data booklet can be downloaded from the RSGB website. You will be given a copy in the exam. There are also mock exam papers. See Chapter 2. I definitely recommend you go to the RSGB and take some of their mock exams before you take the final exam. Applying for your license. Whichever way you sat your exam, the formal result will be posted to you with your candidate number. Ofcom are informed of those who have passed at the same time. You should allow 10 days from the date of the examination. If you have passed, you may then log on to Ofcom licensing system using the details in your result letter and apply for your license online. There is no fee for your license, but you must remember to log on at least every 5 years to confirm your details are changed, or of course log on to change them. Alternatively, you may apply on an application form and post it to Ofcom. Unless you are 75 or over, there is a fee, currently £20, for this method of application. Your call sign will be M7 plus 3 letters, and you may choose the last 3 letters yourself from those available. When applying for a call sign by post, it is suggested that you give a first, second and third choice in case your preferred call sign has already been issued. Okay, well that concludes the reading of the foundation booklet. I highly recommend you get yourself a ham radio license. It opens up the whole world to you. Thanks for watching my video, and 7-3, and catch you on air. All the best. M0FX, be clear.